Hi folks, so I just wanted to show off my Ishizu Kashtira deck today. I lost one round in locals, 5 round locals, won pretty handily against most things. The only loss I had was to pure Ishizu tier, and it was actually in time. And I just bricked on one card which I'll talk about, but overall the deck performed extremely well. It's basically just a large Kashtira engine in the deck, and I just want to talk a bit about the decisions why you might play something like this. Obviously, I know the format's been going on a while. Everyone's waiting on Photon Hypernova, but to be honest, I think you could probably get away with playing this version for a while at the moment. While you still have this deck around, basically, I want to talk about it a bit. So we'll just do quick of the standard stuff anyways. So 3 Havness, 3 Merly, 3 Shiren, 2 Rhino Heart. Okay, that's pretty standard. Easy enough stuff to do. You know, you don't really side out any of those. I know some people in like the Shadow version and stuff were playing 2 Merly, things like that. To be honest, Merly came up a lot, and yeah, so it's a pretty useful card. And then we've got our Ishizu stuff, which is 3 Medora, only 2 Agido, 3 Kelbeck, and 3 Keldo, and also Herald of Orange Light. So I actually would have played 3 Agido, but the deck is running at about 43 cards at the moment, and I didn't have enough sleeves. I didn't have enough extra sleeves to play the 3 Agido. I'm a kind of a fan of the milling 5 in most matchups. It's pretty decent, even in something like against something like pure Ishizu tier. This is pretty solid for the mirror. It actually simplifies a lot of the things. Yeah, I might go into more detail once I get to that point anyways. So next thing, just to show off in the deck. So once again I said 43 cards. So you've got 2 Kashtira Births, 3 Fenrir, and 3 Unicorn. Okay, so this is kind of the main difference in the engine in this deck. It's insanely powerful. If you open this card, plus Shiren or something else like that, and along with something else to discard, you can make Diablosis and banish your opponent's Kikalos, among other things as well. And at the moment, obviously, a lot of people are only playing 1 Kikalos, so for that purpose, this is really, really strong. So like general combo is like, you know, have this in hand plus a Shiren, plus another monster, and you go Unicorn add Birth. You go Unicorn Unicorn add Birth, basically, right? They're not going to have this because if they do that, then you can snipe their Kitkalos using the Unicorn's effect on resolution. So they have to be very, very careful in terms of shotgunning different effects as well. So that's why this version, in terms of against the Shizu tier, is actually quite good. It's quite straightforward, to be honest, in terms of how you play it and why you should play it in this way. So special Unicorn add Births, and then you can mill 3 for Shiren, or even if you open Fenrir as well. Like that's the other thing that you can do in this as well is, you know, you can basically mill a lot of cards to get something for your Birth, because Birth is obviously a special summon from Grave or Banish, basically, right? So you can set up a rank 7 play plus a normal summon of a level 7 as well. So generally what you can end on, if you just happen to draw a handful of Kashtiras, a lot of the time, if you open Fenrir, for example, if you open Fenrir and Birth, which could happen sometimes. I opened 3 Fenrir at one stage. It was a nightmare of a hand. So you go Fenrir, special add Unicorn, activate Birth, normal Unicorn, Unicorn effect, just to add another Birth, I guess, just to tin your deck a bit. You can make rank 7 or whatever, and then you can maybe start doing your tier plays. So it's quite cool. It's the end board that you can make is extremely generous. It's very difficult for your opponent to sort of interrupt it, especially with Unicorn, because if they're kind of relying on maybe 1 or 2 extra deck cards, this can make an absolute nightmare for them. And with the Diablosis as well, because you can go, if you open well, or if you get to 2 level 7s on the board, which is not, I thought it was going to be harder, but it's actually quite straightforward to do. You can make Diablosis, detach, banish their unicorn, banish 1 card from their field, or even just wait till later, right? Special back whatever you detached from Birth or from the Diablosis to have 2 monsters on the field. That's a 2/8 and a 2/5, or 2/8 and a 2/4, depending on what you're doing. And then you get extra banishes off that. And then obviously if you control a Kashtira and you have this on the field and they activate a spell, a lot of people are using spells. You can banish 3 from their grave face down, which triggers off your Diablosis, all that other fancy stuff, right? Yeah, so that's the Kashtiras. Last thing is I'm playing 1 Druisworm. To be honest, I don't like Bestials. I find they make me very silly and very incompetent in terms of when I'm playing against someone who is using Bestials as well. If it's like Kashtira Ishizu versus Kashtira Ishizu tier, I find that I am a bit too shotgunny with the Bestials in terms of when to use them, and I often lose the Bestial War. As well as that, they become very bricky in your hand, and I don't like Magnamut. So this one is purely in there in case your opponent has a Magnamut in their grave. Didn't come up today. In fact, I nearly lost because I bricked on this card. So I prefer to maybe keep it towards the Kashtiras instead. But this is obviously a necessary out for a lot of different things. Sending to grave is really good in terms of obviously targets, but sending to grave is quite good. So then we've got your spell lineup, which is pretty straightforward too. So instant fusion, 2 scream, 1 terraforming, 3 pearl rhino. 2 tactics, so I've upped myself from having 1 tactics to 2 tactics, and it actually cost me the final match today because I opened 2 tactics in a really bricky hand, and my opponent didn't do anything that let me trigger tactics, so I lost. It was very frustrating, but I still think 2 tactics is probably okay. I might just replace 1 with change of heart or something. I think that could be kind of a good idea because, yeah, change of heart is probably the best idea for this. And then just 2 Sulik, negating monster effects is quite good. Yeah, so that's the main deck, 43 cards. And then we've got our extra deck, which is Elf, Dark, Sprint, straightforward, normal combo stuff. And then we've got Dugaris. So this is an interesting choice. Main purpose of this is obviously both to draw 2 cards, but also to discard. Draw 2 cards, discard is useful. The other effect as well is that it can bring back one of the Kashtiras from the grave, and give you more to work with in the later turn. Because the Kashtira, Unicorn Kashtira, Fenrir are just huge monsters. So this lets you keep extending as well. Didn't summon it a single time, but theoretically it's actually quite good. Same thing with Redoer, didn't summon it at all. Didn't summon Baguska. My first round was against Flunder, and I won purely based off the Kashtiras and Diablosis, which allowed me to banish a large number of their cards face down and put them in really awkward situations in terms of how to do things. Because they activated Extrav for banishing 6 in the first turn, and then that means that I get to banish 6 face down from their deck as well when I make Diablosis. And then Fenrir kind of helps clean things up when they normal summon Robina as well. I also got shifted in my first 2 rounds in both games. And the Kashtiras allow you to play through those quite effectively as well. They put big monsters on the board. They're a bit more effective than the Bestials, I think, in that situation, because when you're using the Bestials, you're using the shifter to banish the shifter to summon a Bestial, and that leads to really awkward situations. So the kind of MVPs against something like Flunder was actually Scream, Birth, and I think it was a Unicorn, probably. Maybe Unicorn or Fenrir. I'm not sure which. Probably Fenrir, actually, because I needed to banish Dimensional Fissure as well. I got stuck under Dimensional Fissure for a long time. But you can kind of outgrind people with the big monsters, and Birth is a really, really good card. Dweller, summoned it once to make Zeus and then clear the field. This guy, Diablosis, the Mind Hacker, they need to ban this card. I can already tell. It's insane. It's a ridiculous, ridiculous card with a ridiculous effect where you can make a rank 7, detach, look at someone's extra deck, banish one card face down from their extra deck, and then when a card is banished from from your opponent's extra deck, you banish face down from the top of their deck up to the number of cards that are banished face down for them. So at one stage, one of my opponents used a Pot of Desires, and I made this guy and banished his face down, and he had to banish 11 more cards from his extra deck, or from the top of his deck, and that is insane. Allows you to extend as well, because obviously it's a free detach basically from Unicorn of Fenrir, and you bring back whatever you summoned with Birth as well. So this plus Birth is insane. Then we've got Zeus. Zeus is straightforward. Glider Heart, great card. I mean, Rule Kalos, great card. Kick Close, great card. Garura, I used to not summon this as much, but it's quite good. Dragostapelia and Mudragon. You could probably take out the Dogaras and put back in a Zeus, or not Zeus, Beatrice, sorry. But I don't play that many Bestials, so I only have 2 level 6s, which is this plus the other Bestial Jerusalem. It did come up today, so that's something. But in general, I would say the extra deck is very tight and there's not much more extra room for anything else. Although I think, obviously, in future, you need to find room to fit 2 Kikalos. Yeah, so then we've got side deck. So side deck was kind of, I won't say a mishmash, but it was just it was built based on looking at a lot of the topping decks and what I kind of enjoyed about some of them, and what I enjoyed about siding for different things as well. So crime, generically good, prevents things like evenly matched and other ridiculous stuff. I actually crimed someone's imperm today to win, which it sounds absolutely ridiculous, I assume, because it's such a waste to use on an imperm, but I used it to get a Keldo into grave as well, so it was quite good. Just for time, never came up. I don't go into time actually. I only went into time in the last game. It was because it was in the Ishizu mirror, and it's very complex to navigate with the Kashtira sometimes. 2 Saranir. I lent one of my friends who won, or who came 3rd in a regional over the weekend. I lent him one of my Magnamuts, and I decided that I didn't want to play Magnamuts, so I just used Saranirs. But this maybe could have been, I think literally these probably could have been DD Crows, and they'd have been the same, to be honest. So Heartbeat. So I've got Heartbeat plus 2 Twin Twisters, which is basically just my back row removal. Heartbeat's just because it's an engine thing, and then Twin Twisters for back row. It came up a lot. I basically, anytime I drew this, it was a swift win, because a lot of the time my opponents were kind of sitting on back row and had like clearly bricked or just got stuck, and I was able to sort of OTK them, or at least put them down to a large amount of low life, because the Kashtira, Fenrir, and Unicorn are huge. You know, like 2,500 damage to the face, and being able to, when you declare the attack, banish the monster that you're attacking face down, and then attacking for 2/5 anyways is just, or 2/4 anyways is just insane. 3 Imperm, it's just generic. It's mainly to hit Rogue. The big fear for all these decks, obviously, in the world that we live in is what's it called? What's that card called? Shifter, right? So this helps avoid things. It just helps you stay alive. It helps you reduce what the flunder back or board can be, just by hitting the right card on this one. Usually you can hit the Robina or you hit the Eaglin, and you're usually safe from that at that point. In general, it's good against Rogue as well. Just a nice little side in, and even you slide it in going first as well as back row, so it's quite good. Dark Ruler no more. I had it. It's mostly just for Sprite, to be honest, because not that I have a difficult matchup against Sprite. In fact, I think the Kashtira version has an insane matchup against Sprite. But what it does is it just kind of helps even the playing field and allows you to kind of take a bit more time to break down the field that they have. Because if they win the die roll, oftentimes you don't have enough interruption unless you mill really good. Unless you open Havness and you mill really good. Odds are they can build up a really big board with the Gin Buster and totally awesome, and potentially double cross and smashers, and it's just a lot. And it's not so much that it's like, oh, this is a really good sprite player. It's that this is kind of the standard board that they can put up if they open somewhat decently, you know. And because I'm not playing Bestials, they don't have the situation where they're, you know, avoiding Bestials or anything else like that. So you're gonna just have to deal with their board as it comes, and this is a great equalizer in that instance. So, and then final cards are just Necro Banshee and Zombie World. I had one opponent instantly scoop because I activated Terraforming, and they knew I had Zombie World, and they must not have had an out, so they just kind of instantly scooped. Another situation where I special Fenrir, Fenrir add Unicorn, and then normal summon Necro World Banshee, and swinging into an open board, just for a lot of damage, and then go Necro World Banshee effect to place Zombie Worlds against Flunder, essentially, right? And you know, being able to kill them in one turn, even though they'd shifted me as well, was really, really, really good, because they're incredibly way more locked in than I am at that stage. Yeah, so I think it's worth talking about, or even just thinking about what the deck looks like. I just want to go very, very quickly through, I won't say a standard hand, but like a hand that came up a lot, that I found surprising. Like, it just comes up a lot. I don't know. Don't ask me why. There's been a lot of situations where both these cards came up at the same time. I had another one where it was like Medora. It was usually the crappy ones, right? So it was like, obviously this is a 4-card combo. I don't want to be talking about 4-card combos, but this is mostly just the 2-card part, really, that we're just talking about. So, you know, we're talking special Unicorn. Unicorn effect, add Birth. Not going to shuffle. Activate Birth. Birth effect to normal summon Fenrir. Fenrir effect. Add another Unicorn. I think in this instance we make Diablosis, detach Fenrir, banish their Kitkalos, and then banish one card randomly from their face down. Effective Birth, special, and then Shire in effect, right? Or Shire in effect either with this and this, or this and this, you know. And this is like onboard disruption. Depending on what you're playing against, you're better off maybe detaching the Fenrir from this than the other one, purely because Unicorn, it's good. Like, the matchups that this part is good against, Unicorn is usually not good against sometimes, because of the way it sort of operates. Like, I'm talking about like Flunder and things like that actually don't use the extra deck that much. And then, yeah, I mean, this is usually sufficient. Not a lot of people are maining back row removal, so Birth usually stays alive, and these monsters are big enough that they survive as well. So the board that you kind of make is very mediocre, right? Obviously, if they open up lightning storms and blah blah blah, I mean, you're probably going to lose. But in most cases, that's not going to be sufficient, and once you realize that they're playing lightning storms and stuff like that in the main, you just have to play it differently. Like, if you play that hand and you've got Shirn instead of all this stuff, you wouldn't go into Diablosis, but your play gets a lot more linear. But in general, I think this version of the deck simplifies things a lot. I'm not saying, like, I'm sure people love the technical play of Ishizu Tear, and a lot of people hate the fact that it's so overpowered, which is true too. But I think one of the biggest things that you can kind of take away from this deck is the Kashtiras in this instance are very, very unfair, but they are a bit more useful, I find, than the Bestials. Not in kind of responding to what your opponent's doing, but in terms of disrupting your opponent from doing the things they want to do. Like, I will say, against Pure Ishizu Tier, which is what I played against in the final round and lost to, I banished his Garura and his Kitkalos using Diablosis and Unicorn. and he still put up Dragos Tepelia and Kaleido Heart. So there was no way I was going to win that game anyways. But at the same time, it's not completely overwhelming, and I mean, it was, to be honest, it's a sign of good play in that situation, that it's not completely hopeless to get to that point. But I would say this deck is definitely a bit more linear. So let's just do test hand for a second. So what the hell do I do with this thing? So this is just a normal hand, to be honest. I open Orange Light like it's no one's business as well, by the way, just because it comes up a lot. I actually Orange Lighted quite a lot as a one-of. It's been really good. It's really, like, it's almost stuck to my hand or something. It's weird. But in this case, obviously, if I'm going first, I'm in a good position. If I'm going second, if I'm in a good position, I'm definitely in a good position because of Scream. So Scream plus Medora. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So since I have, I'm after milling Shiren, so I go Shiren effect, a Guido effect, you know, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so lots of unicorns and other stuff. Still no birth though, but I mean, can't expect it all. But if you play it out, it's like pretty okay. Obviously, if you open a Kashtira, you kind of have to do it first, which is very annoying, I will say. So it makes your turns very homogeneous. But in general, it's pretty good. So look, Orange Light again. Wow. So this time we got, let me see. So I got Fenrir. Fenrir gets you. Where's it gone? Gets me Unicorn. We go Pearl Rhino. Pearl Rhino effect gets me Shiren. We might go Shiren plus Merly. 1, 2, 3. Merly effect. The one thing I would say is you kind of need some level of Bestials. I think going back, if I was to go back to the drawing board just a bit more, I might put in some more Bestials or something else, because it's very difficult to make the Mud Dragon in this deck with just the Drewsworm. So potentially I might put in something different. I was going to also play the Shadow version at one point, but I decided on this version instead, and I'm very happy with it. I would recommend giving this a go. If you don't like the Bestial Wars that kind of go on, it can be very interesting. If you like the idea of playing a very unfair deck, I mean, you're probably playing a Ishizu tier already at that stage, but if you want to play something that really, really does not, like Rogue does not like at all, and also is a bit more resilient through Shifter, I recommend giving this one a go. The Unicorns, 2 births and 3 Fenrir, just stuff them in there somewhere, and I mean, the deck is probably going to win. I mean, if you can fit in room for Super Polys, if you wanted to reduce the number of Agitos, I like Agido and I like Kelbeck because I like to mill stuff as well. So, but take a look, give it a go. And also, I'm very, 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 very close to 1,000 subscribers. I would really appreciate if you give it another subscribe if you've seen this channel, and whatever, you know, that's all. It'd be cool to get to 1,000 subscribers, but not begging, so I don't care. If you do it or don't, I don't really care. Oh, there's Fenrir. See, so Fenrir is quite a cool card. I know people like Bestials maybe a bit more than these guys, but these guys are coming in Photon Hypernova. Be ready, or just be ready to quit the fucking game, I guess. I'm gonna say Diablosis needs to get banned already. It should be emergency banned, if anything, because it's disgusting. You know, you can't, there's so many cards that you cannot use. And yeah, well, let's see, let's pray for some form of healthy format before all this stuff kicks off. And yeah, that's about it. Like, comment, subscribe. Boo hoo.